What's going on, guys? This is going to be our Sum of Your Markets Week 66. This is also going to be focused mainly on crypto, but I am going to cover a lot of the stocks that I am watching as well, so you guys will get a little bit of a mix of both. But first off, we're going to start with SPY, gold, oil, Bitcoin, Ethereum as the summary. Then we'll get into the watch list going into stocks and crypto. Let's get started. So SPY first. You have a little bit of a breakout here on SPY. You have a little buy signal coming in on May 4th. You bounced off that pretty strongly, broke the all-time high, and now we are heading into our targets around 425 and 428. So right now, I would definitely lean bullish. The trend is definitely bullish overall, and the short-term momentum is climbing. So the bulls are in control right now. I think until you lose like 419, the bulls look pretty good. Now, if you get below 419, start looking for a retest of around 415, but I wouldn't lean bearish really until you lose the OTS trail. Okay, so SPY looks really good. The other indexes look very good as well. Like Qs didn't look too bad last week. You had a little bit of a pullback. You still haven't made an all-time high on Qs because of that nasty sell-off, but it doesn't look too bad. You do have a daily buy signal coming in on Friday, so that was pretty good. The best one of all of them was the Dow Jones. So Dow Jones is just ripping higher. So a lot of the energy sector, the financial sector, Dow Jones has inside of its ETF. So when those go up, it does very well. Okay, so keep an eye on that. The indexes look really good for now. I would definitely lean bullish. Moving on to gold. Gold also doesn't look too bad. You had that beautiful bulldog at the bottom, popped up, gave that little consolidation, and then we broke out again. So if we look at the higher time frames here, this is breaking that massive downtrend that we've been in for a very long time, okay? You are retesting the 50-day, or excuse me, the 50-week moving average here, but we did reclaim the OTS trail, and we're giving a green bar on the weekly. So it's been quite some time before we had a green bar on the weekly on gold. So this looks like the trend is finally shifting, right? If you guys use the bot, let me pull it up over here. The bot actually also gave a weekly buy signal on the gold futures, which we have not seen since March of last year. Okay, so this looks really strong here moving forward. I think if gold can hold above like 1850, 1840, this should definitely be going higher towards the 1900 to 1925 area. Okay, if we fail back below like 1800, then I would be looking for around that 1750 support. All right. Moving on to oil, you had that little bit of accumulation come in, bounced out of it, retest, breakout. So now we definitely are bullish. We're creating a new bullish impulse. So we have kind of a higher trend forming here. This could also be kind of like a cup and handle. So we have like a cupping pattern coming in here. So this could be like a cup and handle forming. And then we break higher, or it doesn't even have to put in the handle. You could just break higher here. And then you would be looking for around 70 to 71, okay? As long as you hold above like 64, I would lean bullish. If you fail below 64, look for around 62 to 62.75, a lot of support there. And then if you break that, look for around 59, okay? But as long as oil continues higher, the energy sector, looking at XLE, should continue higher, okay? Moving on to Bitcoin. So I gave you guys some big important levels. I think it was the week before last. We were looking at the POC, the single print inefficiency, and then the value area low. Those are the most important levels of the past few months. So look at where price is hanging out right now. And this is actually very interesting because not only is price hanging out around the POC, but look at the 50-day moving average, look at the OTS trail. Everything is lining up to show you that 56.6 is a massive support or resistance, right, depending on where price is. It is the most important level that we are currently looking at in this distribution, okay? So as long as price is above 56.6, I would lean bullish on Bitcoin. If it's below 56.6, then you would lean bearish. What we're currently seeing is a break of that level and then a retest of that level. So very bullish. as long as you hold that level as support, you are flipping every major support in the area to hold price up, right? So until you lose that, I would be looking for around the 63,000 target. You could also target somewhere probably around like 60,000, but your overall target would be around 63. Now, if we do lose 566, you would be looking for around 54.4 or around 52.2 as your major supports, okay? I want to show you one more thing about Bitcoin before we move on. I talked about this in Discord. We had this important level right here that was that resistance. This also was the weekly high. So if you looked at the weekly of this range here, this little wick right here was the weekly high. So it lined up with that level nicely. That is your major resistance. So when that breaks, that should trigger a breakout into the next level around 63.3. Okay? But once again, 56.6 and 54.6, major support. All right, let's go back to this chart here. Look at Ethereum. So I gave you guys a final target on Ethereum around 3,200. I updated that target in Discord after the summary of markets to be 3,800. So that final target has been hit, and we can go ahead and delete all these levels. And we can actually look at the most recent impulse to find our higher up targets. So we had 38, which we did break, and we're retesting. So for right now, this is extremely bullish. The next target would be around 43 to 4,500. Okay, the obvious target would be 4,000, but you've basically already hit 4,000. So when we break that, 43 to 45 should be the overall targets. Okay. Now, if we fail back below 36, Ethereum is very extended. You can see the last time that we touched the trail, it gave you a bunch of buy signals back here, and then we ripped higher. So it is quite extended. So if you do break that level 3,600, you might come back to retest the trail. Okay, so watch out for that. Depending on where the trail is, it could be a nasty sell-off. But long term, this would be a pretty dirty sell-off short term, obviously. But long term, as long as you hold above like 3,000, 2,800, it's extremely bullish. Okay. That is it for the summary of markets. I'm going to keep the theme with crypto, and we're going to move on to crypto first, and then we're going to go over our stocks watch list after that. Let's go to crypto here. So obviously, I know a lot of you guys are watching Doge. We had that Saturday Night Live skit yesterday where Elon Musk went on. He talked about Doge. They had a few jokes about Doge, and it pretty much sold off during the entire episode. It was a pretty nasty sell-off. Dropped it all the way down to around 43 cents. But now we're bouncing very heavily. Okay, so if we zoom out and we look at the volume profile of this entire kind of distribution, you can see that we're pretty balanced, honestly. It's not really seeing massive volume towards the highs. It's not seeing massive volume towards the lows. It's pretty balanced. So a balanced volume profile tells you that you want to be buying the lows and selling the highs, right? You want to be playing the range as long as it is ranging. So because we reclaimed this level here and we reclaimed that value area low, this is definitely leaning bullish. That also is the POC. So the value area leans slightly bearish because the POC is towards the bottom, but the POC can easily be shifted if we find any volume in these two areas here. Okay, so as long as we stay above that range low, the value area low around 53 cents, this should lean bullish. Okay, and your overall target would be the middle of the value area, which basically already hit somewhere around like 61, 62, or you would be targeting the value area high around 69. Okay, so watch out for the 50 moving average, and a lot of these levels line up kind of around like 63, 64. A lot of resistance in that area. And then also watch out for if we lose this level again. If it loses the 52 to 53 support, most likely going down to like 47, 43, you've got a support level there as well. Okay? All right, moving on to ADA. I called this out in Discord yesterday. I think JMA did as well. We had a beautiful range forming here on ADA. We popped above the range. Let me hide the bot for a second. We popped above the range, and then look at these candles here. These candles look a little bearish, right? They look a little ugly. But if you zoom out and you look at the trend, those candles are actually very bullish because you were pulling back to retest that range, okay? And now we have that confirmation coming in with that explosion candle from today, okay? So the bot is still in a buy. It looks pretty bullish. I think as long as you hold above, like, say, 160, this is going to lean bullish, and you would be looking for around $2 as your overall target. Moving on to Litecoin. I still like Litecoin. Do I have this drawn out still? I do. Okay, so Litecoin here, if we look at the weekly, it's in like a broadening wedge. Go down to a daily here. We can see that we've been testing this trend line multiple times up here, and it just does not like this level. Okay? But if we are able to finally gain value above like 370 and hold there, this should be pushing into 420 very quickly. This should be a very strong explosion because this is an acceleration move. By acceleration, it means like this was the previous trend. In order to break out of this, it has to accelerate much faster. Okay? So if it holds above 370, be on the lookout for around 400 to 420. Should be very quick. Moving on to Link. Link also looks pretty good here. You had a pretty nice pullback the past few days, and we gained a lot of value. You can see there's a lot of value up here. It hasn't shifted the value area just yet, but I think it will pretty soon. If we zoom in closer, it will put the value area up there. So you can see there, if we zoom in to the recent impulse, the value area is up here. So as long as you hold above like 48, 47.80, this should be quite bullish. Now, if we do break above the fake out level around 53, you want to be looking for around 58 to 59 as your breakout targets. Okay? Moving on to Matic, kind of the same thing on Matic. You had a nice, beautiful bull flag come in. You found a lot of value there. Excuse me, and we're pushing higher now. So if it holds above the recent high, above like 89, 88, this should continue higher. And if you want to find some easy targets, you just go ahead and grab a fib from your recent impulse. You can kind of see where we're failing. This is why I call it the fake out level, the 0.13 fib. Typically, when you break out of a bull flag like that and you can't break above that 0.13 level, it becomes a fake out and you come back to retest that breakout point, which would be around 93 to 95 on this level. But we've got a long time left for the daily close, about 4 hours left. So this could push higher and close above that level. So if it does, you would be targeting like 127 to 135 as your breakout targets. Okay? Moving on to Sol, kind of a similar pattern here. You have that bull flag forming, big breakout from the lows here. If we grab our fib, we can kind of see where the value is being found, and then we want to climb above that, break the 0.13 fib, and then we want to look for around 64 to 68 as our breakout targets. Okay. Moving on to FTT, this thing just beautifully uptrends. It's been uptrending basically since inception. And we broke out of our previous high. We broke that 60 level, and it looks like it wants to go higher. Okay. If it pulls back, which it kind of already did, be on the lookout for this support right around here. So around like 59 to 56 is a lot of support. That's like the top of this volume shelf here. So any pullback that stays above those levels should continue higher. Okay. If it pulls back below those levels, as long as it stays above the trend line, it should continue higher. Okay. So don't be afraid of a little pullback on FTT. It still looks very bullish. The next one I want to go over is Cake here. This one has a beautiful kind of like falling wedge here on the 4-hour, 8-hour chart. We came back to retest it, and now we're bouncing off of it, okay? So if we zoom in here to the recent impulse, we can see where the value is, right? And as long as we're staying above the POC, which we're currently retesting, this should be quite bullish, okay? So stay above the POC, stay above like 38 to 36, and this should definitely go higher into the 42 to 44 area, all right? Moving on to algo, I still like algo. You're in a massive kind of bull flag on the weekly here. If you look at the weekly, it's pretty dirty, not very clean. But if we break out of this range here, this should easily be going higher, right? And if we want to grab like the recent impulse, we can see how this is kind of retesting the 618, retesting the buy zone, and we're bouncing out of that buy zone, okay? This could be an ugly cup and handle, could be a distribution, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. It all lines up, right? As long as it breaks out around 185 to $2, you should be ripping much higher into like the 240 to 260 area as your next impulse. Moving on to Neo. I like Neo here. It's in a pretty strong uptrend. If we were to grab like a trend line here, you can see that we're kind of trending. It also has almost a cup and handle forming. So you could pull back to the trend as like the handle, and then you could rip higher. Be careful though, there's a lot of sellers up here. You can see on the past few times that it tried to break out, it was sold off pretty quickly, right? So be a little careful, but I think as long as it holds above 100, it does look quite bullish. Your target on that would be somewhere around 140 to 150. Next up is RSR. A lot of choppiness in the past few weeks here, past few months, really. But if we look at some trend lines of this recent price action, kind of ignoring this extension here and this extension here, and just looking at the price action in between, we can see some nice trends, right? And we've already broken the trends from this little sell-off right here. So we do have a trend right here that we want to break above, which we currently are. If we can get above like this volume shelf, above like 9.5 cents, 9.4 cents, this would look a lot more bullish. And then you would be targeting somewhere around 10 to 11. And if we break that, you could easily push into around 12 to 15. But for right now, still very choppy. But if we can start to gain some value above this chop, it will look really good. Another one of my favorite charts is DeFi here. DeFi has a nice little support here from that previous high. And then we have a resistance level, which is creating a massive flat top. This is like the flattest top of any crypto right now. And typically consolidations on a flat top like this leads to breakouts higher, right? So as long as we can stay above support around 14.4 and we break above this 15.7, this should easily be pushing into around 16 to 17,000. Okay, so keep an eye on that. Very clean chart. I think that's pretty much it. I have H&T here I really like as well. H&T is putting in like a cup and handle as well. So you have a little bull flag there. So it's going to chop while it's putting in the bull flag. But if we can start to gain value above like 1850, this can easily see 21. Okay, so keep an eye on that. I think that is it for crypto. Let's move on to stocks, and then we're going to call it a video. All right, so starting off with FedEx, you guys know I've been talking about FedEx in most of our summary of markets the past few months. Very, very strong price action. It looks beautiful here. You broke away from these pivots. You bounced up, massive trend. You're just accelerating off of this trend as well. So as long as you stay above the recent high, above like 305, this should continue higher. Okay, so look for around 320 as your local target. Could even go as high as like 325. It is pretty extended, so if you're not already in this, you probably want to wait for a pullback, maybe to the previous high or to the OTS trail, but it's very bullish. Moving on to the infrastructure ETF, we called this out way back when Biden was talking about the infrastructure plan. It's basically been going up ever since. So as long as you stay above the OTS trail, as long as you stay above the local trend lines, this is just going to slowly continue higher. So be on the lookout for that. I think it's going to go to around 38 maybe before topping out, unless the indexes start to sell off. But for right now, it looks very strong. Moving on to steel, we've been talking about steel for quite some time now. A lot of the other commodities and building materials, I guess you would say, they are skyrocketing. So steel is going up with that momentum as well. As long as steel stays above like 25, 23, these pivots, the distribution, it's going to continue higher. I think steel sees 30 before seeing any major resistance. And if it does find resistance, I think if it pulls back to around 26 to 25, that would be a bullish pullback. Okay. Energy sector I already talked about. Value ETF, basically just going to continue higher as long as the Dow Jones continues higher. So if you guys wanted somewhere safe to park your money, if you guys like the boomer stuff, the Dow Jones stuff, I guess you would say, IWD is one of the best value ETFs. Moving on to Jets. Jets has a massive distribution here. People are anticipating the airlines are going to start pumping out some pretty big price moves. The earnings on a lot of those companies passed, and they weren't too bad. So I think this continues higher for sure. This is the ETF for most of the airlines. If it breaks above like 27 and a quarter, I think you're going to see 29 to 30 very quickly. It's a pretty slow mover, but I think in terms of its price action, the impulse should be pretty strong above 27 and a quarter. Basically the same thing with Carnival Cruise Lines. I think you're going to see some price action come in on these pretty soon. They've been distributing for quite some time now, and I think they're primed for the next impulse. Okay, so look for CCL above, I'd say 27 and a quarter, kind of lines up with Jets. 28, maybe 29. If you start breaking above this little trend high here, then that should start ripping higher to like 30, 32. Moving on to Ford, basically the same thing. All these stocks kind of have the same price action. They're kind of distributing downwards here. You basically just want to wait for these to break out of the channel, and you will be continuing higher. Ford would be 13 to around 15 as your mid to long-term targets. Spotify getting beat up a little bit here. It's putting in a massive weekly head and shoulders. But like they tell you, you don't want to predict a head and shoulders until you break the neckline. So if this holds on to the neckline here, this should be bouncing to around that pivot area around like 271 to even around like 290. Okay. So as long as you hold the neckline here, short term, this should be bullish. But if we do find resistance around that area, this would be pretty bearish and most likely would come back down to retest around 175, 180. For now, I would lean bullish short term until you lose that neckline. Moving on to Katos. We've been talking about Katos a few of our videos. I like Katos as long as you stay above the pivot around 2460. It's putting in a lot of support there. You kind of do have that head and shoulders price action here. So basically the same thing. As long as you hold that, it's okay. But if you do lose that pivot, most likely will go lower. You want to see a break of this little downtrend here, basically above like 28, break above 29, should be ripping higher. Neo, watch the support down here on Neo. If it loses that support, very likely going back to retest 28. You hold the support, it'll probably come back to like 44. McDonald's is trending upward. American Eagle trending upward. Johnson & Johnson, watch for price action to hold above the pivot around 169. You hold above that level, very likely going to get around 175. Macy's, hold above the pivot where you basically are putting in the high right now, and you should see around $20. Kohl's looks really good here. Massive distribution, kind of an ascending triangle. If you hold above or break above the ascending triangle high around 63, this should be ripping higher. You do have earnings coming up, so be a little careful on that, but beautiful chart. Kind of the same thing on Nordstrom. If you start to gain some value up here, actually, I'd probably just wait for earnings on this one. Earnings is pretty close. So if it does have good earnings, look for around like 45 to 48. CVS hitting most of our targets. We had targets around, let me see. Just realized I'm on the wrong thing. Here we go. CVS, we had targets around, it was 85.90. See if I can pull them up here. Yeah, here we go. So 85 was our recent target, or our local target, you should say. That's being hit pretty much. The next target after that would be around 91. All right. Snapchat, funny enough, this was the first time I've ever been assigned on selling premium. I thought about selling my premium for a 60% profit up here, decided not to. I definitely paid the price for not doing that, and I got assigned on these around 57. I like this price action though, so I'm going to hold on to my shares. So as long as we reclaim around 57, I think this will go back towards around $60, and then we'll make a profit on these shares. If we don't reclaim this VWAP very soon, I'll probably cut these for a loss. We'll see. Let's move on to big tech, and then we will call it. I actually have big tech pulled up on another layout. I know I got a lot of layouts here. Here are our big tech levels. All right, so Microsoft retesting VWAP around 255. Get above that, look for 257, and then 262. Below 249, look for 241. Same thing with Apple. Get above 132. 133 is your target. 137, next target. Below 130, look for 127, 124. Facebook, looks like you want to go for the rest of the gap fill. So maybe go down to 310, 307. If you get back above 320, look for 326. Netflix nearly hit our target at 488. Bounced a little early, 491. So if you get below 500, look for 488. Above 5, like 10, 515, look for 522. Amazon hit most of our targets. If it gets below 3269, look for 3208, and then 3094. If you get above 3371, look for 3446. Finally, Tesla still holding the devil's pivot around 666. As long as you hold that level, it looks good to continue back to a 711. If it gets below 666, look for 632. And then if you lose that level, you could get all the way down to around 560. But all right, guys, that is the summary markets. That is our watch list for crypto and stocks. Hopefully you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I do stream 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.